everybody, this is SillyLinn, and I hope everybody had a good Christmas this year. But I've got a quick question for you. What can a child do when they turn 5 years old? Because that's the same thing that Undertale did in September, and oh my goodness, they grew up so fast. They sold 2.7 million copies in 5 years. That is a lot. I wonder if a child can make a pie that old. That would be very impressive. Oh yeah, I'm talking about Undertale today.
In my opinion, Undertale is one of the best games in 2015. It has great music, amazing characters, and one of the best sensational boss fights that everybody will probably never stop talking about. Now, as the 5th year of Undertale passes, I feel it would be a bit wrong if I didn't make one video about this game. I mean, we got an orchestra version of the entire OST for Undertale. This game knows how to honor itself. But now I have one question for myself.
What on earth am I supposed to do? I can't beat an orchestra! I also want to do something Christmas-based as well. But how am I supposed to link Undertale and Christmas together? Well, I feel that Christmas is all about giving presents to other people. But one problem that I really have with Christmas is I feel that I'm opening these presents way too early. Who knows, maybe I should resist the urge to open these presents and just take my time just to enjoy them. Who knows, maybe I could beat Undertale without using any items. Wait.
In Undertale, there are 4 options that you can do in a fight. Fight, Act, Items, and Mercy. Fight is necessary if you're going to be doing a no mercy / genocide run, or if you want to do with that classic fighting monster stuff. Mercy is necessary if you're going to be doing a pacifist run, or if you just want to spare some monsters. Finally, Act and Items are just meant to make your life a whole lot easier and more interesting. So, I wanted to see if you could complete a full pacifist run without using any items, and probably defeating every single boss. Why pacifist? Well, that's my favorite run, and I don't have to fight Sans! Reason number 2, I don't want to get jump scared by Chariot. I had to endure one Sleepy White Girl in October, give me a couple more months, then I'll do another. Also, this is technically the closest thing I'm ever going to get to a hard mode. Maybe one day it will happen, but I don't count on it. Also, I will be using the Nintendo Switch edition of Undertale, mainly because I like it and I want to fight every single boss. If you're wondering what counts as an item, this can mean everything and anything that we can use in our item suites. This can be food, weapons, or even gear. Not only that we're going to have no healing in battle, but I'm just going to have to defend myself with just a stick and a bandage. The only way that I could think of healing is with a checkpoint, getting healed by axe, and getting healed from the monster's attacks. Also, I'm going to have to make one exception to this run. I can pick up and buy items. An example to this would be me buying ice cream and then just giving it to a cat. I will not be using it, but technically I'm just passing it on. I hope that makes sense. Spoilers? I'm saying this because we actually have to do this more than once during this run. So if we didn't have this one rule, the run would just automatically be impossible to beat. Now, without further blathering on, let's just begin the fun. So after I enter my name, survive the 100-foot fall challenge, and almost get murdered by a weed, I had to adventure through the ruins. This place is basically the tutorial level, so I'm just gonna say it now, the ruins is the easiest thing in this run that I'm probably ever gonna get. There is no problem here, unless I intentionally mess up. Now, talking about tutorials, we meet Toriel. She helps us understand the game and gets us used to the underground. She helps us through some puzzles as well, and I'll admit, I absolutely adore this character, because she reminds me of what a true parent should be. Someone who always welcomes the child and just wants to protect them at all costs. I'll be absolutely honest, I wish we saw more of Toriel in the game, but sadly we only really see her in the beginning and in the very end. I really enjoy every time we see her in the game. Well, apart from one part, but we'll talk about that later. Anywho, Toriel goes on ahead, but she leaves us with a phone so we don't get bored. Now don't worry, I will definitely use this phone appropriately. Anyway, moving forwards, I remembered all the patterns of the enemy's attacks and the ruins puzzles. After getting used to the game's physics, we move on to the first roadblock. Literally. When fighting Napstablook, remember not to upset him. This makes the fight end quicker. Now, just avoid all of his attacks and you will be fine. I'll be honest, I managed to somehow flawless this boss fight, and I think I just gotta thank RNG for that. Now, after Napstablook, I bought some food from the spiders that I definitely was not going to eat.
Resist the temptation.
Why would I do that, you asked? Well, supporting people's food is just fun.
I mean, what am I gonna use it for anyway? College?
Now, after meeting up with Toriel, I got given a room and I was faced with my least favourite part of this journey. Breaking Toriel's heart. Remember how I said I didn't like seeing Toriel in one part of the game? Yeah, this is kind of it. If you guys didn't know, the only way to escape the ruins is to fight Toriel. And the only way you can do that is just by breaking Toriel's heart. Do note, if there was a way to stay with Toriel and the game just ended there, I would probably take that chance. Now, the second boss fight we encounter in this game is Toriel. Now, Toriel is one of the most powerfulest bosses in Undertale in terms of stats. But in actual battle, she's actually one of the most easiest bosses, like, in the whole game. If you didn't know, if you get to 2 HP in this boss fight, Toriel will just refuse to hit you. So how you beat Toriel is just get to 2 HP, and then just spam A. After 2 minutes, you win! So after the game breaks my heart into 1,000 pieces, we finally leave the ruins. Realizing that we're being watched, we get introduced to 2 stupendous characters, Sans and Papyrus. These 2 are probably my most favourite relationships in all of Undertale. Whenever I see these 2 together, I always have a good time. I love the puns made by Sans, and I think the best part is just the reactions made by Papyrus, if any of these puns are mentioned.
It's just beautiful. Seeing these 2 together just reminds me of what true siblings should be. 2 people just annoying the hell out of each other.
Well, enough of me being cheesy. Let's just get on to Snowdin. Snowdin is when all the enemies start to get challenging. I find myself getting hit every now and then, but the first part of Snowdin isn't that hard. Just remember the patterns to how to beat all of the enemies and you'll be fine. Also, while I'm here, I just want to talk about 2 mini bosses that I definitely overestimated.
Oh my goodness, it's just the dogs!
I had no problem with the lesser dog boss fight, but I might have a tiny problem with just patting him. I couldn't stop patting him, please send help. Now, I thought Greater Dog was actually going to be incredibly tough, but after a quick Google search of his patterns, I was able to beat him first try. And I'll be honest, I was absolutely surprised on that. When I first played Undertale, I died so many times to this boss fight, even with items. And now that I have no items, I didn't get touched at all. What sorcery is this? Now, after solving some of Papyrus's perfect puzzles,
PPP for short.
we arrive at Snowdin Town. Now, this place is somewhere that I will be returning a lot. The main reason is mainly because of the inn. If you didn't know, it's 30 HP and it's completely free!
Still haven't found the use for this.
I just want to admit, for some of like the boss fights, this can be extremely helpful. Now, after chatting with the residents of the den in the snow, we had to fight Papyrus. And oh my goodness, this was hard.
It is true, if I automatically just get defeated by Papyrus 3 times, he will just let me go past him. But where's the fun in that?
When I first beat Undertale, I managed to beat this boss fight on 1 HP with items. So, when I saw that figure appear, just know that I was shaking in my boots. So, after remembering all of his patterns and dying a few times, I beat him. Barely! Now, before adventuring to Waterfall, we had to do a little bit of dated store.
I would show you the footage of what happened on that date, but I don't want to spoil this to any teenagers that may go on dates later. Now then, do I?
After having a little break with Sans, we arrive in Waterfall, and oh my, this part was just pain! Undyne spots me, I messed up the most easiest puzzle, and Papyrus tries to call on us to tell Undyne what I'm wearing. Then we have this!
Man, this is going great.
Thankfully, a monster kid saves my life, and who knows, maybe this will actually get better. So, while I'm here, I might as well talk about the 2 Undyne attacks, and probably how to beat them. Step 1, run! Step 2, if you see the arrows are flying at you, feel free to stop moving or just run in the opposite direction. Undyne's arrows from the first attack will fly in front or behind you, so try to react if you can. But if you get attacked by an arrow, move to the bottom side of the screen and try to avoid the arrows. From the second attack, remember the pathway you have to take to get to the end. This will save you so much time instead of guessing. I also found that staying by a wall or a ledge limits the amount of arrows that spawn. Or maybe I just got lucky, who knows. Also, 2 things that I want to talk about. On one of the Undyne fights, I died. But instead of respawning by the star thing, I respawned right before the fight. You know, the area that has absolutely no respawn stars.
How in the name of Asgore?
And on the second boss fight, 1 sphere just appeared in the void. I had no idea that could happen, but I'll admit, Undyne's powers is absolutely off the chart today. Now, after dealing with the 100-foot drop challenge part 2, we encounter the Mad Dummy. Which, this boss is actually extremely challenging. You have no way to attack him, and the only way that you can win is just by counter-attacking and wait for someone to help you. This boss was so hard, I somehow completed it first try.
Will this game ever give me a challenge?
So if you want to know how to beat the Mad Dummy, you just gotta predict if he's gonna move or just sit there. Then you could use some magic / boom booms to take him down. Now, after Nats with Blue saves our lives, we experience the best thing ever.
I give this game a 10 out of 10. Anywho, wanna see something scary?
Now, luckily, I'm diaper trained. If not, that would probably have made me pee to myself. So, after saving Monster Kid from the 100-foot drop challenge, we probably this time fight Undyne. And when I mean properly, I mean...
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Axe seems to be helping me a lot. I wonder what happens if I just use it here.
Well, now might be a good time to start writing my will.
If you ever heard of Undyne, you would probably know that she is hard to beat. So I was sweating when I faced her. I only got hit once and I beat it first try. Normally when I fight Undyne, I die a lot or I barely beat her. But now, with no items, I only got hit once! What the f***? So, after saving Undyne from heatstroke, I promised Papyrus I would meet him at Undyne's house. I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? Me getting hit once? So, I hopped in a boat with a person I had no idea who it is.
Please don't do this in real life.
And met up with Papyrus and the bad dummy? Anywho, me and Undyne had to spend an after... Wait, Undyne? I didn't spend a good 2 minutes talking about Undyne, did I? Well, Undyne is probably one of the most determined monsters in the underground. She started off as a hothead kid who tried to fight Hasgore to prove her worth, to being the head of the Royal Guard. At first, she seems like a murder machine, but start looking deeper, Monster Kid, Papyrus, and Sans tells you she ain't that bad. If you spend a little time with her, you could actually find out a lot about her.
Dang, is this how making friends is like?
As me and Undyne are talking about Papyrus, she realized he missed one of his baking classes. So, instead of Papyrus taking the class, I had to take his place. So, she grabbed me by the head and we had the best baking class ever.
Envision these vegetables as your greatest enemy. Now, pound them to dust with your fist.
Pat.
Oh my god! Stop petting the enemy! I'll show you how it's done. Yeah! We'll just scrape this into the bowl later. We add the noodles. Just put them in the pot.
1, 2...
Nice. Alright, it's time to stir the pasta. As a general rule of thumb, the more you stir, the better it is. Ready? Let's do this! Stir harder. Harder! Harder! Ugh, let me do it. That's the stuff. All right, now for the final step. Turn up the heat. Let the stovetop symbolize your passion. Let your hopes and dreams turn into burning fire. Ready? Don't hold anything back. Hotter! Hotter, darn it!
Don't you think that's enough?
Ugh! Let me do it. See? This is how you...
Man, I gotta get me one of those.
So, after assessing Undyne's hatred for us, we return to Hotland. Now, after breaking into a lab, we get a reminder that someone is always watching us. And meet Dr. Alphys. Now, Alphys has one of the most saddest story arcs in all of Undertale, especially if you go down some of the neutral routes. But we're not here to talk about that today. She is considered a big sister and a good friend by a few people, but has a tragic backstory that we will talk about later. She really enjoys watching our journey and says that she wants to help out.
Sure, I got time.
But she mentions a tiny problem. She mentioned she made a robot called Mettaton that can destroy humans with ease. And then we're greeted to... Now, I was kinda scared of Mettaton's quiz show, due to the fact that she does 10 damage a hit. But I found out this was a whole lot easier when Alphys just gives us all the answers.
What are rules anyway?
Sadly, Alphys doesn't tell you the answer for the last question, but if you pay attention to the afternoon with the fish lady, she talks a lot about Alphys.
I wonder why.
Anywho, Mettaton flies off, Alphys updates our phone, and we start exploring Hotland. Now, the land that is called Hot has a few tricks up its sleeve. Trick number 1! The monsters are incredibly hard. You need to remember all of their patterns. If not, you will be stuck on an enemy for quite some time, or you will just straight up die. Trick number 2! The incredible amount of puzzles. If anyone wants to know how I solved this puzzle, well... Trick number 3. A dancing cuboid robot. Now, Mettaton causes us a lot of challenges. First, baking. Second, a live interview with some explosive taste. And third, will be explained in a short moment, after this big news flash. Welcome to the section of the video where I call haha funny moments. So I was in a room and just finished the clicky clacky challenge. Then I passed this cactus thing, and who knows, maybe I actually needed this for later on. So I tried to reach for it. Unfortunately, I couldn't reach it due to the fun treadmill. So I had to loop around some deadly lasers, which took over a minute. Then I realized that this cactus was absolutely pointless for me, and the game just wanted me to look like a silly idiot.
I wasted $11 just to get in line like that.
Now after the game made fun of me, I encountered Muffet, and oh boy, this was painful. If you didn't know, an easy way to beat Muffet was to eat one of the items. This will end the fight immediately. But
we don't do that here.
Remember when I made jokes about the game's difficulty and the amount of money that we had? Well, this is when the game strikes back. I died on this boss fight so many times.
Apparently, it says that this board will actually show me how much times I've actually died on the Muffet boss fight till I've completed it. There's weird number 3, I don't know why this is here.
If I died 3 times, why am I complaining so much about Muffet? Well, let's just say I did something very silly later on, and it kind of involves Muffet. Up next, we had Mettaton's third puzzle, the Color Maze. And for some strange reason, I wanted to complete this puzzle. So, let's just say that this puzzle is extremely hard, and we're almost guaranteed to fail it. If you do fail this puzzle, Alphys will just save you from your impending doom, but if you complete this challenge, I get a slightly different ending, and most importantly, I would have some incredible bragging rights. So, I attempted this puzzle, and on the first try, I died. So, I closed the game and then just reopened it, cause that's how I could try again without resetting. But I forgot to do one important thing. The last time I've saved the game was before the Muffet boss fight. As you know, in Undertale, there are these determination stars. This is the only way to save the game. If you beat a monster, a boss, or just straight up leave the game will not autosave. So, if I do leave the game, it would just start from the place I have last saved. So, as I respawned, I realized something terrible. I had to beat Muffet again. Play the music. Muffet. She relies on her spiders, donuts, or bracelets to attack you. But she has a special gimmick. If you give her money, she will reduce the amount of damage you take. Normally, you will take 6 HP of damage. But if you pay her money, this will be lowered to 4 HP of damage. So Muffet took me a full 2 hours to complete, and I had to make a list on how to avoid her attacks. But if you all want to see it, well then boom, here you go. Most of it is just chicken scratch, but I understood it, so it made sense to me. So if you're willing to try the Muffet boss fight without items, well, I wish you luck first of all, but if you are wanting to try it, I recommend you give Muffet money whenever you think you're going to get hit, or if you just can't remember the pattern for the next attack. This will be crucial to survive. So after groaning for 2 hours, we arrive at Mediton's dungeon. Now, time to attempt this course without getting help from Alphys.
Are you kidding me?
So, my footage crashed. Luckily, my recorder started working when I entered the core, but that means my footage of completing Mediton's challenge has been crashed. And yes, I somehow completed it. Anywho, if you guys want to know how this challenge would have been if you do beat it, there's a card in the top right corner, and it will take you to a video just showing that. Anywho, after having a nice dinner of air with sands, we arrive at the core. Now, the core can be easy or painfully hard. The enemies here can really pack a punch, so you must take the shortest route possible to get to the finish. For the first part of the core, you must do the total opposite of what Alphys says. For example, if she tells you to go right, we go left. This will let us fight the least number of enemies as possible. But when we arrive at the laser light show, this is the only time we pay attention to Alphys' instructions. Now, when we get to this crossroad part, you want to follow the sage path. Then, go into the red puzzle room and let your thumbs be busy for a moment until you work out the strategy. After that, go back to the start and go east, and this will take you straight to Mediton. This pathway will only let you fight one enemy. Normally, if you take the other ways, you would have to fight boss after boss after boss, then it'll take you to the finish. But if you go this way, this exact combination, I think this is the fastest and easiest way that we could get it to Mediton. Now, after Mediton reveals that he/she/I don't really know the lore of Mediton, been helping Alphys bond with a human, she decides to take our soul and go to the surface to become famous.
Honestly, I would probably kill to see a dancing robot.
Now we fight Mediton. So Mediton is completely invincible to my attacks, but thanks to Alphys' yellow mode, we managed to get past most of Mediton's attacks. Now, after flicking a secret lever,
Oh, yes.
we go face to face against Mediton EX. Mediton X is one of the hardest boss fights by far, which is a Muffet. This took me a full 2 hours to beat, and you just gotta recognize or react to all of her attacks. If you manage to remember all of her attacks, you could beat her easily. Gimmick after gimmick after gimmick. We finally beat her. The final part of Mettaton's boss battle honestly made me cry. Just hearing all of the monsters' praises for Mettaton and having her goals changed just because of these monsters feels so soul-touching. As I'm walking back to the long elevator with Alphys, she reveals that we needed to kill Asgore to get to the barrier. Now, Alphys was a character with a tragic backstory and was somewhat close to the Asgore and the human, so having the knowledge that your two friends will fight to the death and there's nothing you could do about it is an incredibly big burden. Not to mention, she was partly responsible for getting Mettaton's hands and legs decapitated. These things combined is a feeling that some of us feel in real life, and the toll can be incredibly depressing. The fact that Toby Fox, the creator of Undertale, is able to combine these feelings into one character, that's just amazing. Now, as Alphys runs away, we will take this elevator into the new home. But, I'll be honest, this is not going to be the last time that we're going to see or talk about Alphys. Now, as we explore our way through the new home, we get one of the best music tracks in all of Undertale, which ironically is named Undertale. As this melody plays, we get the story from all the monsters we encounter and fought. Explaining the story? Well, before Undertale begins. If you're not familiar with the story, let me summarize it for you. This is the backstory of Chara, aka the first fallen human, and Azrael. The story of how Tori and Asgore loses their children. The story of why Toriel left Asgore. If you've not played Undertale, please play it, so you could just experience this one moment. It's honestly breathtaking. After the tale of the Under, I adventure into the Judgment Hall, where I meet a familiar figure, and get explained what XP and love is. After the boring stuff, Sans gives me a good luck speech and just teleports into the unknown. Probably to Smash Bros or something. Now, the time has come to fight Asgore. After giving him a close heart attack, he leads us to the barrier, while trying to seem as calm and kind as possible. I feel like Asgore is a very underrated character in Undertale. True, he is regarded king of all monsters, but if you play the game, he is treated like a ragdoll. For example, Flowey, Toriel, and Undyne have been shown just to power through him. It might be true that he didn't want to fight any monsters, and he was taken off guard by Toriel and Flowey. But man, they just made Asgore look so weak! Asgore is also one of the nicest monsters in all of the Underground. He didn't want to kill the player. Sadly, deep down, we both know the truth. And how this battle will end. I mean, I didn't want to kill Asgore, so I have a plan. I will just spam the mercy button until he breaks. You know, just like Toriel's fight. He has to break somehow.
He can do that?
So, remember when I said Muffet was the hardest boss fight? Well, Asgore takes that throne now. The good thing about Mettaton, Muffet, and Undyne, their attacks were either too slow or easy to memorize. But, after a week of practice, I still could not beat Asgore. I know it was possible. I've seen people do it before. But I just kept on dying before I could get him past half health. Even with a 30 HP boost, I couldn't defeat him. So I got to admit, I don't think I could beat Undertale without using items. But that's what I would say if I didn't find a loophole. What if I said there was a way to use items for this one fight and the game would not detect it? Let me explain.
I promise I'm not cheating.
To complete an Undertale Pacific run, you must complete a neutral run but without killing any monsters. After that, the game will warp us back to the last saved area to complete the pacifist section. Anything that happens past the last saved area would have been reset. So technically, if I did use weapons against Asgore, it wouldn't count, because all the items would just be reset. I hope I didn't confuse you. So let me explain the game plan. First, I save my progress. Second, I open up the presents and get the Worn Dagger and the Heart Locket. Then third, I don't save at all until I get to the pacifist section. Fourth, we fight Asgore. I promise I'm still not cheating. With the bandage, Asgore deals 8 damage when he's weak, but when you have the locket and he's weak, I only take 5 HP damage. This helped me so much. And after death, and death, and death, this happens. On 2 HP, I somehow beat Asgore. Wow! Even though I did use weapons, I didn't use any healing, just because I felt it would be too unfair, and I was too lazy to get there already. As I said before, Asgore is one of the nicest bosses or monsters in all of Undertale. Even though he gave me an aneurysm, he is always focused on other monsters rather than himself. Many people think that Asgore is the main villain, or the worst villain of all time. Ugh. But, in matter of fact, Asgore has a heart of gold. Someone who is willing to be the bad guy. So, his people have hope. And also one reason why I liked Asgore, he has freaking fire powers. How can I not like him?
So, if you are all thinking who would the main villain be if it's not Asgore, it appears to be that I am fighting them right now. I think I might have peed a little.
Up next, after Asgore, we have the Photoshop / Omega Flowey boss fight. When I first came to this boss fight, I was absolutely terrified. Until I remembered something. When you play this fight, Flowey does not give you a chance to look at your item bar slot. So this boss fight was definitely doable without items. If anyone asked me what the definition of bullet hell was, I would just probably point to this boss fight. Flowey is throwing everything he has just to torment you. So I had to move constantly to have a chance at winning. Luckily, this boss fight had an absurd amount of checkpoints to it. So after breaking my thumbsticks on my controller, all of the human souls came to my aid and defeated Flowey. Now, after still refusing to kill anyone, even Flowey, we end up at the end of the neutral run. Sans calls us up and explains the current state of the underground. And if anyone does not believe that I have never used an item, well, there you go. Now, before we meet up with Undyne, because for some reasons you wanted me to play Mailman, I said at the very beginning of this video that I want to beat every pacifist boss fight. And there is one boss from the neutral route that I didn't touch yet. Mad Mew Mew. If you people are not a big Undertale or Nintendo fan, you might have never heard of this boss fight. Mad Mew Mew is an Undertale bonus boss fight that occurs in the sink of Sans house, and the only way that you can play it if you play on the Nintendo Switch.
I promise this is part of the game.
Now, it uses a very interesting control gimmick, which I have to use 2 thumbsticks to move the heart. And let's just say, for someone that has hand-eye coordination problems. Now, after mastering the controls, we managed to defeat the Mad Dummy once and for all. Also, I may not ever have the chance to talk about this, but the Mad Mew Mew is probably one of my favourite soundtracks in all of Undertale. Toby Fox took Spider Dance and somehow made it so much better. Have a listen. Now, it's time to complete my job as a mailman and give Alphys this mail.
I don't want to open it. Can't I slide it back out? No, I can't keep doing this. I'll read this one. Wait a second. Oh my god. Did you write this letter? It wasn't signed, so I had no idea who could have... That's adorable! And I had no idea you, wrote that way. It's surprising, too, after all the gross stuff I did. I don't really deserve to be forgiven. Much less, this. And so passionately, too. You know what? Okay. Yeah, let's go on a date.
What?
Just so I don't get all the adults mad at me for spoiling how dates go, I'm just gonna skip ahead and explain how this went. So at the date, Alphys has realized how much she cares for Undyne, but she has been lying a lot to Undyne to make herself seem more like a better person. Alphys wants to confess about her lies to Undyne and tell her how much she cares for Undyne, but she has no idea how to do it. So, we give her the best advice we could think of.
Obviously, let's roleplay.
So, after Undyne walks in while Alphys confesses her cares to Undyne, I get a few hundred death stares, and Alphys starts
For real this time.
confessing her cares and all the things she'd lied about to Undyne. So, after those 2 lovebirds and Papyrus go off,
Oh yeah, Papyrus is here now.
they all set out to help Alphys feel better about herself. Anywho, Papyrus,
You know, the guy that would totally not tell a lie. At all.
called us up and just said, "Go check on Alphys. I sent her back to her lab. The world is not on fire." So of course I went there and found a very suspicious note at her lab, which read how she thanks her friends for helping her, but these problems will stay onwards, and she needs to learn how to tackle them by herself. All of her problems were hiding through this door, and she apologized if she may never return. So, without any hesitation, we run headfirst into a falling elevator.
"100-foot drop challenge number 3, boys!"
So, after getting out of the crashed elevator, I arrived at the true lab. Turns out the power went out, and I guess I gotta take care of that now, huh? Also, I just want to say that the true lab was way harder than I initially thought. The Amalgamates, the main enemies you fight around here, are bastardly strong! It normally takes 5 rounds to beat some of them, and if you get hit 3 times by any of their attacks, you just die. Not to mention that you need to find 4 keys to escape, so you are stuck down here with these Amalgamates until you fix the power. The only way that you can beat the Amalgamates is to remember all of their patterns, to spare them as fast as possible. Also, pray that you don't get hit, and remember, if you forget the patterns, Google is your best friend. Also, this place does hint about Alphys' tragic backstory. Most of Alphys' problems are revealed on the date and the true lab. Alphys has been working on making artificial souls to break the barrier, and let's just say it goes horribly wrong. Alphys has been using monsters that are basically about to die, injecting them with determination, the thing that keeps souls persist after death, and at first it seems to work. The monsters that should have died survived, but sadly, this didn't last long. The monsters begin to melt together and form these amalgamates. Alphys didn't want anyone to know about this, so she kept it a secret from everyone. Mind you, that everyone thinks that these monsters that are now the amalgamates are completely fine, and they keep on sending requests to know how these monsters are doing. This really affects Alphys, and in the end, she says that she will do no more hiding, and informs everyone of the amalgamates and returns them back to their families. As I get into the elevator to return to Hotland, something goes wrong again, and I somehow get transferred to the new home. The elevator doors force shut thanks to some vines. This could only mean one thing, that weed is up to no good.
I always knew it!
Now, the time has come to finally rematch Asgore. But before we could do that, we get greeted to a familiar face.
What a miserable creature, torturing such a poor, innocent youth. Do not be afraid, my child. It is I.
Toriel!
As all of our friends arrive, we get the opportunity to watch all of these main bosses we see reunite and talk. I feel that this part of Undertale is so underrated and never talked about. First off, we have the amazing theme Falling Down reprise. They made one of my favorite themes of Undertale so much better, and I love it! Also, everything I love about these characters appear in this one moment. Toriel concerned for our safety, Sans making jokes, Papyrus's reaction to that jokes, Alphys' awkwardness, and Flowey's evil plans. Wait, Flowey? Flowey managed to get all of the monsters in one place to absorb all of the monsters and the human souls, becoming more powerful than ever before. Now, we have one final boss fight in our way, Azrael Dreamer. I have come a long way to complete this challenge. I managed to complete quick and confusing puzzles, long and tough boss fights, and even bending a few rules so I could stand right here in this very spot. Now, nothing will stop me. Not even the god of hyperdeath. Death after death after death. I was getting better, passing through every attack. Hope was the best act we have by far. The ability to take less damage and healing 1 HP was glorious, but Azrael goes full power, so I couldn't do anything. The only thing I could do was get hit over and over and over again. I tried to reach my save file, but it didn't work. All hope seemed lost, until I hatched an idea. I looked deep into Azrael's soul, and tried to find my friends, Toriel, Asgore, Sans, Papyrus, Undyne, and Alphys. I stood right before them all. I got past their attacks and managed to save them all from Azrael's soul, until there was only one thing left to save. Save Azrael himself. Azrael tried to throw everything he had at me to stop me from winning, but I refused. I pulled out the secret tactic of spamming, which managed to win us the fight. Now, as we finally get a moment with Azrael, he regrets everything he's done. Killing and tormenting us. Taking all the humans and monster souls. But he wants to make it up for us. With the power of 6 human souls, and the monster souls. Azrael breaks the barrier, meaning that all monsters are now free from the underground. After we give Azrael one final hug, he wants us to do something for him, to make sure I took care of his mum and dad. After waking up surrounded by friends I have made, I brought them through the barrier to the other side to see the sun. Now, as we watch that yellow circle emerge, Asgore asked me if I wanted to become the ambassador of monsters, and without any hesitation, I agreed. Toriel asked if I had somewhere to go, but I decided to stay with them. I promised Azrael that I would take care of him, so I kind of had to do this. Then, that's it. So, can you beat the pacifist run in Undertale without using items? Of course! I had to bend a few rules, if not, I would not have been able to do this. But I managed to pull it off.
So yeah, that is actually the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video challenge special thingy recorded, because let's just say that this video actually took a long time. I won't bore you guys with the details, but I just hope you guys just enjoyed it. So thank you everybody so much for watching. I'm Star Aiden, and we'll see you all later. Bye! Wonder who that was. Oh hey, a parcel! Wonder what this is for. Hey, there's a note written on it. This pie was made by a 5-year-old? Wait, 5-year-olds can make pie?